Outsourcing tends to have a bad reputation as being low quality. Partner Hero's value-based approach raises the bar for the outsourcing industry by investing in employee empowerment and career growth, paying above-market salaries, and maintaining a focus on quality and performance. They're more than a service provider. They're also a thought partner for the startups they serve. It's simple. Brands that care about quality customer experience choose Partner Hero. They offer flexible terms and the ability to scale quickly, perfect for startups, with quality assurance baked into every program and offices around the world. So Partner Hero can provide truly global coverage. Outsourcing has long been available mainly to big businesses, but Partner Hero is challenging business as usual by bringing the benefits of outsourcing to businesses of all sizes with short, flexible contracts and fast ramp-up times. 10 years ago, when we were launching the Action Catalyst, we could have used a few extra hands to help us scale quickly, even if it was just for a short while. You can bet that with their expertise, fast onboarding, and core focus on quality, Partner Hero would have had our attention. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your startup that feels like it's a part of an existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head over to partnerhero.com/Action Catalyst to book a free consultation with our solutions team. Mention you heard about Partner Hero from the Action Catalyst, and they'll even waive the setup fee. Now, on to the show.
Southwestern Family of Companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. Each week, our diversely and amazingly accomplished guests share their insights and inspirations to help us ignite our own. So let's invest attention together to breathe, to reflect and refocus, and decisively defeat that voice we call Mr. Mediocrity. Then let's enjoy moving forward to make a positive difference in our world.
Are you interested in advertising with the Action Catalyst? Our listeners could be hearing about your brand right here, right now. For details, shoot us an email at info@theactioncatalyst.com.
Welcome to the Action Catalyst. This is Dan Moore, and I'm so excited that today we're going to be spending time with Don Yaeger. Don has had an amazing career. He started as a print journalist, and for our younger listeners, you can look that up online to find out what a print journalist was. Now, print journalism is extremely important in the history of our company and continues to be today. But he's also an inspirational speaker. He's an author himself. He works with people to help them become more successful in their lives. It's amazing the people that he's met and had an impact on and vice versa over the years. He's written books, some of which are in the New York Times bestseller list, and some of the people that he has spent time with and helped create books with are Hall of Fame running back Walter Payton, the great UCLA basketball coach John Wooden, who created the amazing pyramid of success, some baseball legends, John Smoltz and Tug McGraw, and I'm here in Nashville, and Tim McGraw is a local hero here, his son. Football stars Warrick, Dunn, Michael Oher. Most people have seen the movie The Blind Side, and he spent time with Michael himself, which is fantastic. But he's also created some amazing books about history. George Washington's Secret Six, a book about the citizen spy ring that actually helped us win the Revolutionary War, which I knew nothing about before, and I suppose most of us don't. Also a book about Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. He's written about Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans. So many historical background things, sports things that just really, I think, have shaped Don's life. He was an associate editor of Sports Illustrated, which I read religiously as a kid. In fact, my parents said, you're going to have to stop reading it in church. You're reading it religiously. Terrible joke. But after a 30-year career at Sports Illustrated, Don went in to pursue his public speaking career, and he's been able to share stories of inspiration from our generation with audiences from Fortune 10 companies to even cancer survivor groups. And I hope you'll share a bit about your personal story with us there, Don. It would be, I think, meaningful and powerful for people. So his 10th New York Times bestseller, Teammate, was the inspiration behind his newest keynote talk, which is called What Makes a Great Teammate? Becoming Invaluable Without Being Most Valuable. And I sure want to hear more about that. So Don Yaeger, welcome to the Action Catalyst.
Dan, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
You've had so many amazing twists and turns in your careers. I say careers because there's been more than one. What would you say have been some of the most significant pivot points that caused you to maybe move from the San Antonio Light, your first stop, to then to Sports Illustrated, and then to get into writing books, all the rest of that?
You know, I think, Dan, one of the things I love about what you're sharing with your audience is this idea that everybody loves to see people who we perceive are successful, right? I mean, they've achieved something, and we think it's just this it's been a direct line, right? And there's there've been no bumps in the road. And the truth is, just as there is in your life, and I've had some incredible derailings, right? Places where my personal behavior. I mean, I had a situation when I was working for a newspaper before I got to Sports Illustrated where I let my ego get out of control. And I had written my first book, and I was just so dead set to be on every TV show I could be on that I ignored instruction from a leader within my own company, and ultimately lost my job because my ego had gotten out of control. And I had to, those kinds of moments occur in the life cycle of anybody who's ultimately successful. The difference, I think, the thing that I've learned is how long do you dwell on the life? How long do you let a moment like that take you from your path? I learned early, both as an athlete and as someone who studied athletes, that the truly best kind of have a 24-hour rule. And this became a model for me from even the time period I was in high school. Anything that was that bad, that had affected me negatively, I gave myself 24 hours to wallow and to find pity and to blame others. And then at the end of 24 hours, and I would watch the clock, trust me, because I want to make sure I got every bit of my 24 hours. I knew that mentally, physically, emotionally, I had to shift and begin thinking, okay, that's the past. In the parlance of basketball, we use the phrase next play, right? What's the next play? What's the, what, and you have to ask yourself that really often. Even if the last play was a good play, you have to look at yourself and say next play. And so I had a 24-hour rule. And whenever something took me off task, whenever something really hurt me professionally, obviously there were some personal moments that lasted longer, but I let myself wallow for a short period, and then when the clock hit 24 hours, and I was very intentional about that, I would immediately begin the process of saying, okay, now how do I talk to myself differently? How do I make sure I'm saying what's the next play, and what do I have to do to set the next play up? And in all of those situations, even out of the very worst that happened to me, better things came. And I think I don't think that there's nothing uncommon about what happened to me there, other than that I learned how to go next play, because most people I've talked to who reframe their mind that way find that kind of success continues on afterward.
I love that phrase, reframe your mind.
Yes.
Because we all know that it's easy to stay in that wallow mode. We might get to the 24th hour and then say, well, how about just another hour? This is really awesome.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I mean, this pain is so awesome. Let's just continue one more hour. No, I think I think that that 24-hour rule became a really important part of my my development from the time I was in high school. My father was a man of amazing wisdom. He was a Methodist preacher and a guy who just, I didn't realize how wise he was, obviously, like most parents. But he used to talk to me about that all the time. You can control the things you can control. And I knew that how I talked to myself was one of the things I could control.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Do you mind, Don, expanding a bit on that, how you talk to yourself in the context of these amazing performers in business, literature, and sports that you've spent so much time with? What about self-talk? Do you see that's a common practice where they're very intentional about making it constructive and positive instead of just a random floating of thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the great lessons that was taught to me was by a women's soccer coach at the University of Florida. won a national championship, really, really successful. But one of the things she talked to me about was how she regularly worked with her players on, something's gone wrong. Penalty has occurred. You've just given up an important goal, whatever it is. What would you walk over and say to your teammate if that had happened to them, right? You'd throw your arm around them. You would be encouraging. You would be next play, right? We got to put that behind us. We have to, this isn't your fault, right? We would say all of those things to our teammate, right? But when it's us, we go the complete opposite direction and we beat ourselves up. Oh my gosh, this team would be so much better if I had not shown up today, right? What if I had just not been? What if I hadn't, made it to the team bus? Imagine that goal would probably not have gone in. You blame yourself in ways that you would never blame your teammate. And so she started saying to them, every time you get into a situation where you begin to talk to yourself, put it in third person. Imagine it's you talking to a teammate, because the way we talk to others is always more positive than the way we talk to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so by telling yourself, I now need to look at myself in the third person. I need to be able to talk to myself like I would talk to others. You find yourself able to say the words that you really need to hear, which is, that was an unfortunate moment, and let's move on.
I'd say there's a reason she was a national championship coach.
Without question. Yeah, she's one of the single most inspirational women I've ever met.
That's fantastic. I read a similar quote the other day that said, if someone else talked to you the way you talk to yourself, you'd leave that person.
Oh, man, that's powerful. That's a great line.
Yeah. So it's very reflective of what you just shared.
Yeah.
If we can jump ahead to your own personal crisis that you dealt with your health, Don, you've alluded to that and how you work with cancer survivors and work with them. Can you share a bit about that for us, please?
Yeah. So I was 40 years old, and I love the game of basketball. I play it all the time. I have a full court at my house. I love the game of basketball. It is my way of continuing to try to act young and still play with younger people. And I did the really dumb thing that you shouldn't do in pickup basketball, and I stepped in to take an offensive foul, and the young man that was coming down the lane hit me with an elbow and crushed my nose, just flattened it. I mean, so badly that surgery was scheduled for the next day to rebuild my face. And they obviously didn't do that good a job. But but in the process of that, they did X-rays, and the X-ray was supposed to have ended at my chin, but it actually, for whatever reason, it slipped down a little bit. And the doctor came in and said, "By the way, we in our X-rays, we noticed a little something down here that we are not sure of, and we're going to, while we have you under, we're going to check it out." And I woke up. They'd worked on my face, and but they allowed me to. They shared with me that the biopsy had come back that I had stage 3 thyroid cancer, and it had already spread through the lymph nodes of my body, and I had no idea because I was young and healthy, and I didn't have a reason to have been checked for that previously, and I had no idea. It was a total accident, right? Although, if you believe as I believe, you would say it is a God thing, right? And so 2 days later, I was back in the surgical center, and they were doing surgery to remove what they could of the cancer and the cancerous area. And I entered into a treatment protocol that landed me at the end for 3 days in a lead-walled room with no human contact because they were running so much radiation through me. I was radioactive. And
wow.
I'd never been alone for 3 days in my life. And I used those 3 days to really kind of sit down and do a lot of evaluation in life. And it's a shame that it took cancer to make me take 3 days to do that. Right. And that's, I guess, if there's a great lesson in it, it would be don't make cancer require you to set aside time to evaluate yourself. Right.
Right.
And I realized that a dream of mine had always been to be a father, and I'd missed on, opportunities and things. And I just said I wasn't going to miss again. And a couple of years later, met the woman I would marry. By the time I was 45, I was a dad for the first time. 46, I was a dad for the second time.
Awesome.
And here I am, 10 years later with a 10-year-old and 9-year-old. And it's pretty awesome. So cancer changed my life, but in many ways, and in every way for the better.
That is incredible. And what an insight. Don't wait until you're in a lead-lined room to take the time to evaluate and assess and really think through what it is you want most.
Yeah, because that's a pretty crappy place to do it, by the way.
Well, particularly with the uncertainty, there's no guarantee the radiation is going to work. If it was metastatic cancer in your lymph nodes, no telling where it was going.
Yep. So, and now we're sitting here now, 11 years. We're sitting here now, whatever it is, 13 years cancer free. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, I'll willingly say, praise God. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. So without even really wanting to, you have been forced to learn a lot of lessons about what to do when you hit that unforeseen brick wall.
Yes, sir.
What have been you talked about the 24-hour rule. You've talked about intentionally changing your thoughts. What else has kind of helped you, Don, when a door suddenly closed that you thought was going to be wide open?
Well, I'm for whatever reason, I'm just crazy positive, right? I believe that if a door closes, that a better door is destined for me. I just don't know what it will be. And I think the one thing, I've shared with people, faith is an important piece of who I am. I think it's come up a couple times here already, but I think that the real value in faith isn't just my personal relationship. It's the mindset that says there have to be things out there you won't understand at the moment, and you have to believe it's going to be okay, right? That these things make no sense to me. And yet I have to be okay with them. And that's a real challenging place. So I think that role in my life has been important to me. It's played a role in my being willing and able and open to accept tough times. And again, the other thing too is there have been some really good times since that I've had to learn how to keep in perspective as well. Moments when you're going, this is crazy. Like if you'd have told me when I was a young journalist that I would get a chance to write one book, that'd have been awesome, right? Book number 28 comes out here shortly. If you'd have told me a few people would have bought one of my books, that'd have been incredible. And as you referenced, 11 New York Times bestsellers. It's fewer than 30 writers in the history of the New York Times list in the nonfiction category have ever gotten that. And it's just their numbers. I've been blessed beyond measure. And that's the way I see it all the time. These are blessings.
Wow. I think that's absolutely incredible. Now, as you've spent time with some of these iconic sports figures and amazing people, it's so easy to look at them with their monetary success, their fame, their fan clubs, all their likes on Facebook. But I know many of them also have faced immense difficulties. Can you share one or two stories of maybe inspiration that are lesser known, from some of these amazing figures that you've spent time with that have maybe, I guess, particularly impacted you?
Sure. I'll tell you. One of them, I'm going to share you the story of a NFL running back named Warrick Dunn, who probably very few people in your audience might even know by name. I actually did we just released our first ever virtual learning program, and he's a key element in a session we do on how to manage adversity, because that's what you do, right? If you're developing yourself, that's a hallmark here. But Warrick was a high school phenom running back, very, very small, 5'7", 178 pounds. And he's playing in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And his mother is a police officer. And in a robbery at a bank, she's shot and killed. And he's 18 years old. And he's the oldest of 6. No father in the household. He's the man. He goes to college, brings his youngest brothers and sisters with him, puts them through elementary and middle school, becomes the all-time leading rusher in the history of Florida State University, and becomes a first-round draft pick in the NFL. The 12th pick of the entire NFL draft. And when he's there, he walks into Coach Tony Dungy's office and he said, I want to start a charity. And he begins a charity buying homes for women like his mother, single moms. As a rookie in the NFL, he just bought his 168th home for a mom. Just a couple of weeks. Actually, I was in the Atlanta airport with him a couple of weeks ago as he was heading to give that home away to a single mom in Baton Rouge. 168 homes. But in the process of that, he goes into the NFL, becomes the smallest player in history to rush for 10,000 yards. And at the end of, as his career is coming to a close, he wins the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, the greatest honor they give to a player for off the field behavior. And his winning that award made a publisher realize how great his story was, offered him the chance to tell it in a book, and he asked me to be the writer. So the two of us are writing his book, and it ends as we're getting toward the close. I asked him a question: if you were to get a chance to go eye to eye with the man that killed your mom, what would you say to him today? What kind of questions would you ask him? And ultimately, that conversation led he and I to death row 6 months later in Louisiana, where we sat down in a small cell with the man that killed his mom.
Oh my God.
Most amazing hour I've ever spent in my life. And we get toward the end of that hour, and Warrick looks at the man and he says, I don't know why you came here today, but I came here today to forgive you. Most amazing thing I've ever watched. I mean, we could watch all the Super Bowls in the world, right? We could see incredible feats day after day. And it became this real amazing moment because Warrick was telling me as we left the prison, he said, my mother used to tell me that in moments of challenge and moments of adversity, you get 2 choices. You can be bitter or you can be better. And as my child, I ask you to always choose better. And Warrick said he was looking at that inmate that day and he wanted to make his mother proud. And I think, wow, you know what? I mean, there's the greatest lesson of all, right? Adversity is promised all of us. Bitter or better, make your choice. And the most amazing champions pick better.
What an incredible story, Don. And Warrick Dunn, and what an example to the world, particularly the world today, where we're so quick to take offense, where we're so quick to carry grudges, where we're so quick to seek revenge.
Yeah. And I know this podcast is going to run in a few weeks, but many people, by the time they see this, will have remembered that the Super Bowl was played in Atlanta, right, this year. You should know that as Warrick was coming to the end of his career, he played several years for the Atlanta Falcons. And the owner of the Falcons, Arthur Blank, realized what an extraordinary human Warrick was, and that he just set a really great example for all those who play the game today. And so he invited Warrick and arranged for him to become the first ever African-American part owner of the Atlanta Falcons.
The Atlanta Falcons. Wow.
So when the Super Bowl trophy is handed out, Warrick will be standing right there with the trophy as a part owner of the host team of the Falcons. Pretty cool.
That is more than cool. And the fact that he had the trust in you to actually act on that thought. If you could confront the person that killed your mother, what would you say? And then months later, there you were together. Yeah. Incredible. Don, how do you build trust? These amazing people, these athletes in particular, are being pitched from 360 degrees on all kinds of things. And gaining trust from somebody that is naturally skeptical just for self-preservation. How in the world do you do that? What are your ideas there?
That's a really great question. I think it comes down to trying to be authentic with them, right? Just let them, and also I don't ever try to. I know a lot of people that try to equate themselves with others as a way of developing camaraderie, as a way of developing connection. Like, oh yeah. I mean, I know you ran for all, but let me tell you what I've done in my life, right? Mm-hmm. I don't ever try to equate my story to the story of anybody I get a chance to work with, because they're not. I mean, I look at myself as blessed to be able to help others tell their story. Mm-hmm. I don't think of my story as equivalent in any way. And I think that works to my advantage, because I'm not busy trying to, every time they tell a story, come up with a story that will give me, and we've all been in conversations with those people, right? Who every time you share something, they've got to one up you with something else. And I think that's where a lot of people get skeptical of others. If you just say, you know what, man, I am so grateful that I get a chance to learn from you. Thank you.
Wow. Humility and gratitude. Those just come off you. Even if I weren't seeing your face, I'd feel it in your tone and I'd feel it in your heart. It's fantastic. Well,
it allows, I think it allows a lot of really raw conversations to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think people are, and I think that's really, that's where the good stuff comes from.
Right. At the same time, you have tremendously positive self-esteem, the sense that you can make a difference in the world. And I think that probably empowers you. Would you agree that you like yourself quite a bit too?
I do. I mean, there are lots of things I wish I did better, but I don't beat myself up often. I remind myself daily. I used the word blessed earlier. I remind myself daily that I'm blessed with opportunities. And I don't always think of them as opportunities to affect others as much as I think as I'm a reflector, right? I get to learn things, and I'm inquisitive by nature. So if I'm driven to ask the right questions and draw from you the best answers, incredible answers, then my real job is to take those answers and reflect them off to other people. If I do it right, you're right, other people are affected positively. But I think of myself mostly as just, I'm really selfishly, I'm kind of in it for me, right? I want to learn from you in a way that's really good for me. Then if I do it well and I share it well, others benefit as well.
Right, like a ringside seat that you get a chance to learn from some great people.
That's it. I don't play the game. I just sit, but hopefully I'm close enough to the people that I can share what they're thinking.
Right. To me, Don, you practice the best definition of humility I've ever heard. And that's when somebody way smarter than me said that humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's just thinking of yourself less.
Yeah. John Wooden said that.
Yeah. Well, he's a great man.
Many people. Yeah. He was an amazing gift in my life.
When I was 14, I had a chance to go to 6 games at Pauley Pavilion when my dad was on faculty at UCLA. It was a tremendous experience.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how we're doing on time, but if I could tell you one quick John Wooden story.
Absolutely, you can.
So, Coach, I was working for Sports Illustrated at the time, and I'd heard a story that Shaquille O'Neal, who was the hip hop star, the Los Angeles Lakers, the center, was doing bad movies and worse rap songs. He was all of those things, but I heard that on a monthly basis, he was going out to spend an afternoon with John Wooden. And I thought that was pretty credible. Like, Coach was 88 at the time. Shaq was 26. What could the two of them, other than basketball, have in common? And so through Shaq's college coach, Dale Brown, who's a great friend, I reached out and I got an invitation to join them for one of these little afternoons.
Oh my goodness!
And Shaq said, "No, these are mentoring sessions. Right. This is where I go to grow." Right. And I thought, how cool is that? 26-year-old kid, wanting to go to grow with an 88-year-old legend. And sitting there, I was blown away. Like, these two didn't talk basketball. They talked about being a better father, about being a better teammate. And it was just really good. And we got up at the end, and I looked at Coach Wooden, who I knew just a little bit. I mean, I've met him a few times. And I said, Coach, you're one of the most extraordinary men on the planet. And he all shucks it. I said, how does someone get mentored by you? Pretty cool, right? Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and he said, you ask.
You ask.
And I said, how many people ask? And he said, not as many as you might think. So most people walk themselves right out of the opportunity before they ever ask. They've got a reason why you'll never be their mentor, right? A reason why you'll never engage them in conversation. And so they never ask. Powerful lesson. I go back, I write my story, I reach back to Coach, and as we're talking, I said, Coach, something told me as I was standing there, I was supposed to ask. And he said, Don, what took you so long? And the next month we scheduled a day where I flew to California to spend that day with John Wooden, just learning from him at his feet. And as a result of that, every other month for 12 years, I flew to California for a day with Coach Wooden. I just hundreds of hours of time sitting in his presence, soaking it up, learning from him. But my job was to come with a game plan every time I was there. Like I had to have my questions because he was willing to give me whatever time I needed. But the second I ran out of questions, the session was over. Mm-hmm. You might imagine the pressure that put on me to be well prepared and have great questions. And he just, but it started because I asked. And that was a really big moment for me. And the lesson that I think I offer people, especially younger folks who are talking about what do I want to be? Well, the first thing you do is reach out and ask, and amazing things happen.
I think it has something to do with knock, seek, ask. There's a few verses about that. It's amazing. Don, how do you personally avoid what might be called the natural tendency to slack off, to coast, to become complacent? You've achieved so much, and you could sit back and simply literally rest on your laurels. Whatever laurels are, you could rest on them. But something is keeping you growing and keeping you contributing, keeping you moving. What can you share about that in terms of your own inner motivations?
One piece of it is, this one's kind of an odd one, but I've actually dealt with this one, right? This is the therapy moment, right? Okay. Where I realized that I'm driven really hard, and I drive myself really hard. And my wife and others have asked me, why do you do this? So, you're now 56, right? You don't have to do this as hard as you do. And working through it, my father left the ministry at one stage and actually went to work for a company. And while we were living in Hawaii, which is where I was born and raised, he lost his job and was unemployed for almost 9 months. And I watched my dad. I watched the cabinets at our house go empty, and I watched my father put on his suit every morning, going and looking for work, and it scared me as a little kid, right? And and even to this day, so I don't have any clue. My wife says all the time, it's really funny to her, I have no clue how much money is in our bank account because I don't care, right? That's not what drives me. What drives me almost as much as anything is the fear of an empty counter with my kids, right? An empty cabinet with my kids. And so I guess you could say part of my drive is based on a life experience that was not altogether positive, right? But was, but left a mark, a mark that I hope I use properly today. Mm-hmm. I hope it's not overly negative. And then the second thing is I'm an insatiable learner. I wake up, I go to sleep every night. And as I close my eyes, I ask myself, I say a prayer, and which I do every night. And I also ask myself, what did I learn today that I'll use tomorrow? And I try to make myself I try to think through what did I learn today that I'll use tomorrow. And if I can't answer that question, man, I may not sleep tonight. But because I love learning so much, I hopefully always can.
Right. Well, clearly you do love learning, and clearly you always will continue to learn. What's most beneficial to me personally and to our audience is that you're willing to share of what you've learned. That's fantastic. As we unfortunately have to start wrapping up, what would you say to somebody that is just out of ACEs? They are so discouraged. They are it could be work related. It could be family related. It could be a bad news health report. Any general thoughts there? Because we have people on this call that are experiencing that now, or know people that are.
Yeah, I think a big piece of it, again, is we've referred to it a couple times about talking to yourself, right? It's about what do you first off, it's about feeding yourself. I would argue that in moments like that, go look for some level of inspiration, whether it's in a podcast or in a book or in a virtual course or something, someplace where you can go learn, someplace where you can go take your mind from what seems to be swallowing you right now and hopefully begin the conversation and start changing the conversation. And because if left alone, we will continue to feed the beast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be very intentional about going and creating a different meal plan, right? And so I guess what I would say to them is stop, take a minute to try to figure out, where can I go? What can I do that will that can help me see things differently, right? Is there someone else that's had a similar experience, who's written a book or has been on a podcast or has some kind of work on their website that I can go read and listen to? But there's a role model out there for all of us, right? There's a mentor out there for all of us, and they don't always have to be people we meet. It could be places we can go to learn. And so I would start there. And I think that if you begin that process, you also help put some of what you're going through in perspective, right?
Yeah.
I hate to say that idea of go look for someone that's got it worse than you, and then it helps you put it in perspective. But the truth is that there are times we need to realize that what we're struggling with can in many places be seen as first world problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our ability to kind of help put everything in perspective allows us to step back a little easier and pull ourselves out.
Right. There's the true shadow we face, and then there's the shadow we inflate beyond what is reasonable.
Right. Yeah. There's the one that happens because that halo light that's above you right now. I'm just joking, but I love that light, man. I got to tell you, you look really good.
Took ages to get it there. I hate to say it's my forehead reflecting.
Ages and Amanda. It took Amanda to get it there.
There you go. Well, Don, thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared, and more importantly, for the person that you are, the life that you lead, the family that you have, and the wisdom that you've offered to all of us. We are so grateful for you.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. To stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and Twitter at Catalyst_Action. Thanks for listening.